So you want to hear more about Giordano Bruno, the heroic freethinker of the early Renaissance who died at the stakes for being too far out there. Well, I have four books that I will talk about that are a good way to get to know him, as well as the memory palaces that made him such a genius. My introduction to Bruno was through Dame Frances Yates, the pioneering historian who laid out how important he was to the Renaissance, especially to bringing about Hermeticism, Christian Hermeticism, from the Hermetic text, which one of the things that she makes clear in this book is the big fallacy of the Renaissance was that the texts of the Hermetica were literally old Egyptian magic, and they were texts that dated back to that period of history. When now, with modern philology techniques, even by the end of the Renaissance, they realized no, this couldn't be that old. These were like first century Greek Christian texts, actually. But for the time when Bruno was alive, everybody thought this was older than Moses. And he was one of the key thinkers who helped to spread this idea of as above, so below, and everything that Hermeticism represented, and using it as a kind of magic. And the conclusions that this led him to were the things that they burned him at the stake for, as we'll see in the last book. One of the reasons he was such a convincing speaker and writer and was good enough to almost convert the Pope to Egyptian Hermetic magic was because of these memory palaces. There was a memory palace tradition going back many centuries, but he took it to the next level and combined two different types. And so Frances Yates talks about him a great deal in The Art of the Memory, and he kind of combined two different traditions to make this incredibly elaborate memory palaces where he could keep pretty much everything he ever knew in his head in a mystical state that led him to believe that each of those could correspond to a lesson about the universe, and you could also find it inside of yourself. To learn more about memory palaces from the man himself, the Umbris Idorum is his first memory book and probably the best one for people to start with. And finally, the book that they burned him at the stake for is The Expulsion of the Triumphant Beast. In here, he pretty much comes out as a pantheist, the idea that everything is alive and is emanating God, instead of God being an emanation of all things, which sounds like hair-splitting to us today, but was a really big difference to the Catholic Church, enough that they would burn him at the stake for these ideas. And so these are four great books to get to know this amazing, pioneering free thinker who would suffer no fools and gave us ideas to chew on that we've been chewing on for 400 years.